Welcome to Life, Lessons, and Laughter with your host, Glenn Ambrose.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. So today I have a special guest, and he's got a real cool name, Kenton Zerbin. How's that? So we've had a couple conversations, and he's a permaculture expert. And as I've gotten into the off-grid community living, land development type research, I'm coming across these very cool people. You know, that their hearts are in the right place. They're nature oriented. They see the big picture, things like that. And when I spoke with Kenton, I found him to be very knowledgeable, and so I figured I'd have him on the show. So without further ado, here he is. Hey, welcome.
Hello. Hey, Glenn. Glad to be here.
Yes, thanks for being on the show. I think this is going to be a good one for a lot of my listeners, because the permaculture mentality encompasses a lot. And I guess, well, before we get into that, did you want to tell the people a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. That's a good way to introduce it, because I feel you just said it. Permaculture is a huge topic. So I'll tell a little of my story, how I got into it, and it'll kind of shed some insight to how big it is and how impactful it can be. And I'll even preface that by saying it is, if I had to think of just one thing that has changed my life over my entire life, it has been this movement of permaculture. So testimonial right there, and I enjoy sharing that with other people. So my career started as a teacher. My journey into what am I going to do and how am I going to help the world, it all stemmed from that. I had a very, very giving and interesting parents. One was a social worker, the other was a police officer, both very kind-hearted humans. And that made me go, oh, well, how do I want to give to my social world? And so when I chose going to become a teacher, I quickly saw the school system was well-intentioned, but I didn't think it was preparing us for life. And with a thought like that, you can really find yourself going, I believe in teaching. What am I doing here? Like, how am I going to actually implement and enact that method of engaging my world? So that's a good way to kind of open up and say, who is this guy? I'm first and foremost someone who really believes in our human potential, and that we are today largely misguided and uninformed at how to live in harmony with our physical world in a way that we're proud of, in a way that is going to leave a legacy for the next 7 generations that we can look back on with pride and know that we were living well. So that's what led me into permaculture. As a teacher in the school system, I was looking for something to teach that I believed in, didn't have it at the time, then came across this movement and went, holy crap, this is next level. This is what I was looking for. This is, how do you grow food? How do you build a house? How do you create social and physical systems that thrive? It's a very, very easy. There's so many ways to define permaculture, but if you wanted to start with that one, it's like, okay, so we're talking about systems theory, we're talking about abundance, we're talking about resilience, we're talking about self-sufficiency, we're talking about interdependency. How do we put everything in our world together so that they have better relationships together, function better? And of course, we then get good food, we get good homes, we get meaningful social systems that we're a part of. So there's a little bit of a quick intro to me, a little bit of quick intro to permaculture. I could talk all day long about my journey. We could talk about the many steps of how I went from the school system to where I am today. I'm calling from inside my off-grid tiny house that I designed and built. And I now get to travel around the world running courses, running workshops, doing consulting for clients, and helping other people take those systems and apply that systems theory to their own place, whether it's their acreage, whether it's their large project, kind of like what maybe you got cooking up, and even to an urban house. Like, this doesn't have to be just for the people who've got lots of land or lots of money. No. This could be applied to a balcony if you want. So yeah, There we go.
Yeah, and that's, this is why I can't say enough how impressed I am with the information that I'm coming across in this journey that I'm on. It just the off-grid communities, the permaculture communities. And my thing is spirituality. So like the reason that I love spirituality is because to me it's the end all be all. Like there's nothing bigger. It doesn't. It's like, oh yeah, this takes care of one area of my life, but not this area of my life. But I really find it interesting. It's like, to me, I'm kind of like, well, if it only takes care of one area of my life, that's cool. But like, I'm really interested in the other parts too. To have the all-encompassing thing, that's the dynamic. That's the structure of what really jazzes me up. And I have to say, there's lots of things that I find interesting in the off-grid community, and the creativity and the heart-centered living and all this stuff. It's wonderful. But if I had to pick one thing that encompasses all that, like in a grandest scale, from what I've seen and heard and learned, it's permaculture. Because it's, I've heard it described as a way of living, like our personal lives, not just where our house is, not in a physical sense, but on an internal sense. A design for living in all areas. And it's that big project that I'm looking at. People think that, oh, I'll need a permaculturist for when I want to plant some things, and it's like, no. Like, you got to bring the permaculture expert in first, because it determines, like, if you're going to work with nature the way we're supposed to work with nature, we have the technology, we have the knowledge, we have the wisdom. It's just most people don't apply it. I'm seeing it over here, and I'm gonna go. This is just like popping into my head. Like, I'm seeing the problem of not using permaculture down by the beach now, because they're developing a lot there, and they're not taking into consideration the water, and the flooding is increasing down in that area because of it. So like, when I'm looking at this big project, it's like, well, I got to figure out a way to put the roads first. And to do that, I have to understand the water, and I have to understand the land topography and all this stuff. And so it's really not a secondary thought. It's not and if you think about it, that's not how overarching concepts work, right? So this is permaculture is an overarching concept. Like, you have to take it all into consideration at first to build something that's sustainable and thriving, as you mentioned.
Yes.
So,
and I like that you actually brought up the spirituality side. I don't usually get to talk about spirituality as a part of what I teach. In fact, the movement of permaculture it's almost explicitly kind of baked in that we leave spirituality and religion out, and there's a reason why. So let me explain, and then let me explain how it's a very spiritual movement. So, as a movement, we are trying to show that there's a science to living. There's a science to our ecosystem. There's a science to how to put these things together. And that information is irrefutable. What makes a house is you can't disagree with how insulation works. You can't disagree where the sun rises and sets. You can't disagree the growing zone that a plant would normally grow within. So by understanding the science of our world, we can build these scientific systems. And this is not to romanticize science. Science does not know it all. Science doesn't have it all figured out, but it is how largely today humans on Earth justify whether information that they're taking in is accurate or not. If it becomes belief-based, then it's or spirituality, then it becomes something that other people can refute. So we are very, very actually line in the sand, being like, we don't teach this stuff over here, because that would allow someone to look inwards and go, that's not for me. Permaculture doesn't work. Permaculture is about belief. Permaculture is about this group.
Mhm.
It's not. So we really draw a line there, and I think that's good to say out the gate. And then let me now answer this now from a personal side, and then let me tell you why I think permaculture is a very spiritual movement. So when you start to analyze anything in detail, you start to realize how it's connected with everything else.
Mhm.
And we can say this in scientific terms: that energy cannot be created or destroyed, right? We can go and
Right.
talk to some of our biggest minds and go, the Big Bang Theory and all this started, and then, hey, why not even bring in Stephen Hawking and the Big Crunch and everything's coming back together? Or you could take any area and look at it in detail, and you will quickly see that its edges are completely blurred with another field of study, because where
Mm.
does one thing begin and end? I'll give you an example with the human body. It's like, okay, let's talk about our digestive system. Well, inside our body, we've got these acids, and we've got things that break down in our saliva. That's chemistry. But you know what? That chemistry is interplayed with biology because we are full of microbes. So now you've
Right.
got two areas of specialists who might not understand how those two things. Well, now we're going to talk about nutritions and nutrients, because that's the food that's going in. And by the way, that food is culturally loaded, so it's made by a certain peoples in a place. Now we're talking landscape and biology. And now it's going to come out the other end and become soil. And now we've got soil experts and agronomists. Like, you see, all of these areas of speciality are actually all one. So permaculture is a great way, a lens at looking at the world and all these areas of speciality and putting them back together in a way
Mm.
that's meaningful, because they got separated. By pulling them apart to analyze and study them, we've lost the connections between them. You can't teach about food without removing culture. You also can't teach about food without talking about chemistry. You can't teach about food without talking about biology or landscape or watershed or nutrient cycle or the sun. Like, all of these things, of course, are connected. So I think the movement of permaculture is actually deeply spiritual, because if you seriously engage it, if you start to study it, take a course in it, start to practice it, you start to see the blurring lines between all these things, and you realize everything is one. And if
Yes.
that isn't the root of spirituality, I don't know what is.
Right, right. And I agree with you. And like, even though I think everything is spiritual, I like the approach, honestly, that permaculture is coming in, leaving the spirituality side out of it.
Mm,
Because I just don't think that the world is really ready. I don't think the world understands spirituality very well, right? So
mm,
because of that, they're going to perceive it as beliefs, as and like the reason that I think spirituality is the end all be all and everything is because I believe that everything that you like, I just believe spirituality is universal law. It's just how nature works, like like if we what was that, I saw something a little while ago. It said something like, if there was one monkey that hoarded all the bananas while a bunch of other monkeys died, we would probably dissect his brain and try to find out what's wrong with him. And yeah, humans do that all the time. Like, all the other humans are suffering and they're just hoarding money and things and stuff, and we don't perceive it as there's something wrong.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
so I think if we go deep enough, we find that, and this is, like, my book is Down to Earth, so that's the title. So it's like, what I try to do is bring spirituality into real life, like, and be like, things that work in the world well and consistently. To me, the reason that they work well and consistently is because they're connected to a spiritual law. There's something in universal, the design of the universe, that it coincides with or is an example of, and that's why it works consistently and works well. And this is, but like I said, I don't think the general public is ready to have information presented to them in that way. But this is why I'm so excited about what's happening on planet Earth right now, is because of the way you described it was a perfect example. I believe that we're blending spirituality and science right now, where we have the ancient wisdom from civilizations that have been on this planet for so long, and now we have the technology and we have the information, so we can access that ancient wisdom on a computer, and the technology, and people that have been living like this for thousands of years, and some people have been living like this for decades. And basically what it does is if you put all that together, we have proven systems that work, and we can take an ancient way of growing things that worked because it coincided with nature, and then bring in modern technology to expand on that idea. And instead of having 1 acre worth of a plant, now we can take that same 1 acre, go up, and instead of out, and now all of a sudden we have 4 times the amount of product in the same area of land, because we're going up instead of out, like through the technological advances. So to me, we're just merging, and this is just one permaculture and aspect of it, but I believe we're merging everything that we've learned through science and history and everything with modern technology, and making it even better and more accessible, and going from the sustaining to the thriving because of it. So
I like that you actually brought up the edge effect. That's what that's called, is use and value the edge. It's actually one of the principles of permaculture. And it again goes back to this thing of like, there are systems everywhere around us. And yes, nature and its systems are a great example of teachers that we can learn from. And let me back that up again and go down and say that everything is a system again, because I said systems theory a couple times, but let's get down to this. We are in a solar system, on a planetary system, and it is governed by all these weather systems. We are a circulatory system, digestive system, a respiratory system. We're occupied by all these microbes, which are systems unto themselves. Everything around us is part of a system. And nature is the ultimate designer, because she's been doing it since the beginning of time with trillions and trillions of experiments. So when it comes to going, hey, I want to grow a food system, we are doing things ass backwards, where we just go, oh, well, we think we know how to do this. We'll just make this one crop here. Let's just knock it all down. Let's plow it all over. Let's put on. And nature doesn't do that. So going from how does these other systems work? How do we take systems theory and bring it in? That is probably the worst example of humans and our potential to go, hey, let's just copy what already works, versus what you were kind of describing there of going vertical is an example of called a food forest. This idea that, nature wants to become a forest. If you leave any area long enough, in time, it will become a forest. So if we're trying to take the work out, it makes a lot of sense to work with that natural flow of that landscape. And you know what? Why not even do it one up? Let's be like a beaver, a keystone species, and speed up the evolution of that landscape by changing its hydrological cycle and nutrient cycle, and get it there faster.
Right.
So the food forest is a great example, where it's like, I can plant trees right now that'll be the overstory trees, and they could be food bearing trees. They can be nut trees. They can be all sorts of things with different uses, but we're going to put them in position to each other so that they're going to mimic the structure and process of a natural tree system for that region. And now you have something which self-propagates, self-fertilizes, self-waters, produces endless amounts of food, doesn't need tons of work to stay in that cycle of productivity, because it wants to keep doing the way you've set it up. It wants to be what it wants, what you've kind of pushed it along the route to start going. That's our potential. And we can use excavator machines and surveyors and all these machinery and science and technology. But at the end of the day, all we're doing is saying, hey, what do you want to be? If left to your own devices, cool. Let's honor that. And then let's put in some energy if it makes sense to, so we get even more out of it and it gets even better.
Wow. Yeah, that's it. That's, that's such good. It's such a good perspective to come at things from, because it's just, it's logical. It makes sense. It's, like, it's just like, oh, okay. It's, my grandmother had a green thumb, and I think she was the only one in the family, And I mean, I do not have a green thumb. However, when I look at what I've done, or most people that I know, that especially ones that complain about not having a green thumb, which, like, kind of like I said, that's my family. Most people I know don't consider themselves to have a green thumb. So when I look at what they did and what I did, basically we just said, I want this flower, or I want this plant, or I want this. And we just stick it in a pot, and without any understanding of its natural growth process, what where it thrives, what it needs. Maybe there's a little sticker on the bottom that says, hey, this one likes sun, so you put it near a window. but I mean, other than that, we're not working with nature. We're just taking, and it's a kind of a philosophy that I think humankind's been doing for thousands of years. We just, at some point, we decided that we were going to control nature, so we built a house, and we created these warm clothes, and we created a heater and an air conditioner, and we created all these things to kind of dictate our internal area, and said, look at us, aren't we wonderful? I mean, we're in control of everything. We can control Mother Nature. And then until a hurricane comes through, or something like that. And I think we have to get back to understanding that we are of the earth. We're part of the whole, just like you were saying. So it's like, if we need to fit into the system of nature, we don't have to redesign it. We don't have to, we just fit into the way things actually work, instead of trying to make it work the way we think it should.
And I think you just said something really important, actually. And it's about an explanation. It's like, how did we get here? Why do we feel so disconnected? Why do we all identify as people not having a green thumb? Let's break that down, because I feel like it's easy to continue carrying a narrative then and feel disconnected, and everybody wants connection. So let's kind of get into this. Right now in our world today, I feel like we have more people than ever before in history, and yet we feel so alone. And the reason why is we have been disconnected from the physical environment that is our first, foremost, and true community. So you think about, like, for example, children, and they're separated from their mothers. Think about the anxiety and social issues that causes in someone psychologically if they don't have a good upbringing, if they have a traumatic way of being separated. Now, if you look at Earth as Mother Earth, which many people do, and we are been separated at birth from it and its meaningful care and giving and nurturing that it wants to give us, what is the psychological and identity crises that would come out of that? And that is what we're seeing today, is people who've been disconnected from their mother, which is, whoa, that's powerful. Now, we can definitely go, okay, now we can own that narrative, and that's negative, but we can also step out of that and go into the positive. Let's get into some therapy here and get into, hey, it's not that you're not a green thumb. It's that you understand that being a green thumb means also being a brown thumb. Well, what does that mean? That means you got to know that everything comes from the soil. You come from the soil. The soil equals healthy plants, equals healthy food, equals a healthy you, equals a healthy stool. Your pat, and that goes back to soil again. And so when we look at that and go, okay, what does a plant need? It's no different than a human. It needs some nurturing and care. Imagine if we said, I'm going to have a child, and you're like, and you stuck it outside in the front lawn and didn't give it any food in the full sun. You'd be like, well, understandably, we shouldn't stick children outside on, in harsh environments. But is a plant any different? And I'm not saying we need to get all like total helicopter mom on our plants. In fact, I am the opposite perspective. I like let's take a plant, let's take a tree, and let's put it in an environment where it has to struggle a little bit. We don't want to baby it and look after its needs. And I think that is you can learn parenting through permaculture here, where you go, if you look after your child's needs in totality, will that grow up to be a healthy human? Absolutely not. Well, if you look at a plant and you go, I'm going to water you every day. I'm going to come over and whisper sweet things in your ear. I'm going to give you the bestest soil every single day. It's totally dependent on you. And that's the
Mm.
problem with our modern agricultural systems is we've devolved or taken these things out of their natural cycles, taken over their reproductive cycles, controlled their genetics, replanted them en masse, and then force fed them a diet which allows them to give max produce for the best shelf life for the cheapest dollar. Could you imagine if we raised children the same way? It would be
It-
absolutely. So, anyways, we digress a little bit, but I think this is a good point. If you're talking about like not having a green thumb and where do people's disconnection come from and how can they reconnect again? It's like, okay, I'm part of my local environment. So is a plant that I'm going to put in this local environment. And becoming a green thumb is not so hard, but it does involve a shift in thinking. And if I could say one thing about permaculture, what it does, it's that it makes
yeah.
your worldview just change. You see everything and its ability to connect with other things in a new way. And you are now like Dr. Phil. You're making match relationships between things where you're like, okay, maybe this thing's going to go good over here next to this. So I don't have to look after it as much. So it'll have higher yields. So it'll have less work. So it'll have more success. You're trying to put all these things together so you can step out.
Right. And let
That makes
nature
sense.
do what nature is supposed to be doing all along. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me give you some more examples because the food forest was a great one where if you plant all these things together, you don't need to maintain it. Let's bring it back to a house. If you put a house on a landscape and you're in the northern hemisphere, we'll say, I'm not sure where most of your audience comes from, but I'm guessing northern hemisphere. Um, if you put that house on a landscape, but tilt the house ever so slightly towards the southeast, that means that in the morning, that morning sun can enter the windows on the front of that house. And you can control the number of those windows so you get free heating. So again, you've put the power of placement now of the windows and the house relative to the sun.
Right.
And now you've got free heating. Now you also put on awnings, strategic in length, again, power of placement, so that the sun's, when it's higher in the sky, can't get in the window, but in the mornings and in the winter time when the sun is lower in the horizon, it can. So now you have strategic cooling and heating just through the placement of an overhang and a window and the cardinal directions of the building. That's it. That's passive solar design, but we made it all fancy and you have to go get a passive solar certification and you got to figure out that you need one R144 in your roof and blah blah. No, there's a basic placement here of like understanding of just a couple elements. There's a few more to go into, but I don't want to go down the rabbit hole. But you get what I'm saying. We have the ability to make systems for housing, for food, and yes, people. Those same needs and yields of like this thing produces shade, this thing can have sunlight, let through sunlight. You can look at people the same way and go, hey, this guy's got this skill set. This person over here's got this strength. This person over here needs this. And suddenly have an opportunity through the power of placement to connect them by proximity and they meet their needs internally better together. That is the true origins of community.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is, it's funny because as you're speaking, I'm listening and I'm going, I'm agreeing with what you're saying, but even more importantly, I think I'm agreeing with the dynamics of what you're saying, like the why of why it works, not just oh, isn't this a nice idea? It's like, no, it works because of this, because we're working with the system. We understand it. And that's why it's working. And that's like I was saying earlier, it's going underneath. That's what I love. That's what I love about the permaculture thing, because you go underneath and you understand the why. And when you understand the why, then you can duplicate it and you can just, it's, science is a wonderful thing as long as it's used correctly. I was like a couple of years ago when I was kind of feeling the pull into this permaculture, off-grid, all movement type stuff. I was I watched something with what's that, the Microsoft dude,
Bill
Bill
Gates.
Gates.
No.
Yeah.
No, Bill Gates. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm watching. I was watching something with Bill Gates or reading something, and it was about how they were. Him and his wife were like, "We're going to solve." We went over to Africa or somewhere,
Yeah.
and we're going to solve the problem over there because kids are getting sick from diarrhea, and in this day and age, that should not be happening anywhere on the planet. There's no excuse for it. So they ran this big, contest with the brightest minds in the entire globe, the best scientists in existence coming up. And I saw some of the things that were being submitted. It's mind blowing. These systems, they're huge systems that probably cost millions and millions of dollars of research and building and all this stuff. And then I saw like within, it was comical of the timing, like within a couple months, I happened to be watching this other show, and it was about the Arquettes, the actors' families there. There's like 2 or 3 siblings and stuff that are actors, and they went over to, I believe it was Haiti, and they went and they said, yes, people are getting sick because the water supply, the feces is running into the water supply and all this stuff. So what they did is they created this system where they had like compostable toilets that cost like $25 each, and put them in this community. And then their catchphrase was, you got to keep the poop in the loop. So they took the poop and they put it in a pile like on the edge of the community and sprinkled it with sawdust or something, that didn't cost anything. And what they did is they solved the water problem, and they started creating gardens for them to grow their own food for the community. So they completely solved the problem and created a sustainable, thriving system for the entire community for generations. Yeah. And these are actors with a $25 composting toilet, like where Bill Gates putting billions of dollars and the smartest people supposedly on the planet can't figure this out. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, all they would have to do is take $100 million and build a manufacturing plant for composting toilets, buy a plane to deliver them anywhere in the world, and we would have solved this completely.
Honestly, so I'm a huge fan of composting. I actually have a certification called the Master Composter Recycler Program from the city of Edmonton. I've been composting inside my house since I ever took that course. I had a worm bin. God, I think it was like 12 years ago. So I compost all my kitchen scraps inside my house. And I also have a composting toilet. And composting toilets are not for everyone. I'm not here to propose that everyone should switch to them immediately, but I think that they are a great conversation starter that addresses the elephant in the room. And that is that the biggest migration on this planet is nutrient and water out of our nutrient sheds and out of our watersheds and across the globe, and then into waterways and into dumps. And we can talk about Tesla cars and solar panels and eating organic all day long. But if we don't talk about how we are treating nutrient and shuffling it around the world and disposing of it like a waste instead of a resource, we don't stand a chance at this conversation of sustainability. So I love that you brought up this topic, because it's not where I start most people with teaching about permaculture. But if you get into permaculture, you will for sure hit this conversation and start getting into some of the real solutions around how do you recycle your organic matter, because there is no such thing as waste. Waste is a dirty, human-invented word. It shows a lack of creativity to say, hey, this is a resource, and it does indeed, I love that saying, go back in the loop. There is nothing linear in existence. And yet we have created linear systems of production, distribution, and then waste. And it is unsustainable, and that's because it is not based on any natural model. So I
Exactly.
think it's,
Exactly.
I
This
think
is
it's,
what I love about permaculture, man. It's like it just takes our entire existence and goes, you people are out of your minds. Like, and just before you get too cocky about what you're doing and shut your mind down, you got to understand you guys have only been this ignorant for the last 300 years. Like not even that long. I mean, really, it's like my grandma. Why did my grandmother have a green thumb? Well, she grew up on a farm. Like they didn't have a gym on every corner. So this was just 2 generations ago. 2 generations ago, we didn't need a gym on every corner. Why? Because people actually exercised. We didn't need the huge stores and the huge grocery stores and the food systems that we have now. We didn't even need them because people grew half their own food just 2 generations ago.
I have
It's like,
another.
so this isn't this, we haven't been like this for thousands of years and we have to reinvent the wheel.
We're not. But you know what? I also think it's really important we re-own the narrative, because I feel like the situation we're in today makes most people feel helpless, disempowered, depressed. We get this paralysis by analysis. We're knowledgeable enough and informed. We have so much access to so much media and the internet that we can learn all about all the things we're doing wrong, but we're not celebrating the things that we're doing right. And so I think
Right.
there's a new way of looking at the narrative that lasts 300 years, like you said. It's actually much longer, but where does it begin? Where does it end? It's a very tricky line and blurred line. But there's a narrative of looking at where we are now and where we can be going forward that I think is super exciting. So when you start up a business, you often start in the red. You go, okay, I'm going to take in this resources to build up, my base infrastructure, my team, my physical, brick and mortar store, whatever it is. And you're in the red with a goal to come out of it. And that's a forward planning approach. You could do the same thing with gardening, for example. You can go, hey, I'm going to do, I want to restart the ecology a little bit here, and I'm going to use a tilling machine. I'm going to turn the soil over. Now, when you do that, that's actually terribly bad for the soil because you kill a bunch of microbes. They become plant soluble, and that leads to a flush of growth. This is why tilling was practiced around the world, but it has a diminishing return because it keeps killing the soil. Does that make it evil? No. Does taking money from other people to start up something to be in the red evil? No. It's how you use it. So if we look at the last 300 years as a way of us taking 2 steps back by honestly having destroyed our environment, by having lost some very important wisdom about how to exist in exchange for energy capital, knowledge capital, potential, to be able to leap from this place, like from where we are at now. We have more energy at our fingertips than ever before in history. We have more access to raw information than ever before in history. We have more access to plant assemblies and seeds than ever before in history. We have more access to machinery, which can do incredible things. Where we are as a species right now is incredibly exciting. But we have to recognize that we took 2 steps back to get here, and we're ready to take 7,000 steps forward. But it has to be anchored in that, because if you're not, it's so easy to look at our steps backwards that we've taken and go, man, we're shitty. Man, we are parasites on this planet. Man, all those indigenous peoples who came before us, they really had it figured out. Oh, we're hopeless. Oh, prepare for the end. We better go live off grid and homestead. Like the off grid community, God bless them, because they are bringing back a lot of this wisdom. But I think it's very interesting to ground ourselves into why we want to escape the systems we're in and create new ones. And I think the narrative we tell ourselves in this and why we're doing it and where we're going to is more important than the details of the what. This little garden here, these solar panels, this off-grid operation setup over here. I think there's a lot to be said about last 300 years and the steps backwards we've taken and where we're going, and that we can put that in a context which is absolutely exciting. And I think that's
Yes.
probably where I am the most excited in terms of what permaculture has to offer the world. Sure, you can get gardening techniques, home building techniques, all this stuff. What it is, it's a new narrative. It's a new, not just a lens to look at your world, it's a way to act within that lens in a way that we're proud of.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. And this is, there was this just reminded me, because it's all the same, it's like we're all one. The dynamics are all the same. They either work or they don't. And it's I was I was watching a lot of these shows at this particular period. Like I think it was around 4 or 5 years ago or something, when I really started taking in a lot of information around this. And there was this guy who basically his job was to bring spiritual concepts, kind of nature-based, healthy, sustainable, thriving, that type of stuff, permaculture type mentality into businesses. And what he was it was great, because like he was describing what he did, and somebody asked him, like, hey, is this a hard sale or something? And he started laughing. He goes, no, he goes, I have the easiest job in the world. He goes, what I do is I walk into these huge companies worth billions of dollars, and I go to them, I go, hey, you guys should you guys should start doing this because it's better for the earth. And they're like, yeah, I'm not interested. And you go, well, wait a minute, let me explain it to you and show you how it's going to be better for the earth. So it's going to be better publicity for your company, but it's also going to increase your profits dramatically and have a lot less work for you. And they're like, huh? Okay. Please explain, I'm listening. And he's like, and then I tell them exactly how to do it. He's like, it's such an easy sale.
Yeah.
He goes, because I'm telling them, like, you can make dramatically more money by doing things that are more in alignment with the earth. And I can literally show them how to do it. He's like, why wouldn't they? Yeah. And most of them don't even really care about the earth. All they care about is the profits. But if I can show them how they can make better profit. Oh, and we got some cool stuff to advertise to the public for being, caring about the world and the earth. Well, that's cool too. It's like, it's beautiful. And that's why I get excited about this, is because we do have the information. We do have the technology. Yeah, the last 300 years hasn't been a waste. We can take what we've learned out of that, and what we've learned from thousands of years, also combine them, and we have the possibility of implementing systems that are just forever better in every way, always.
Yeah.
Like,
I like that you brought up corporate, actually, just because, again, we can say this in a way that is irrefutable. It's agreeable. Everyone's going to go, oh, that makes sense. I like that. But then how do you still get people to take the change? And it's not until you speak to their greeds and wants, their desires and aversions, that you have relevancy in them for taking action. Like, everyone knows that we should, probably change the thermostat a little bit in our home seasonally, but how many people do it? Everyone knows they should take a little shorter shower, but I mean, no one's watching, so they could have an extra minute in the shower. It's pretty nice. Everyone, like, there's all these you shoulds, and I feel like there's owning a narrative, which is more exciting, which is not just exciting in terms of being like, hey, you can be this positive force on the planet, but also it's going to directly improve your time, wallet. There's tangible ways that people will be motivated to act now. I think the example I gave earlier with the house and the strategic placement, for example, makes a more comfortable house that has less heating and cooling bills. It's like, hey, do you want to save $1,000 on your heating and cooling every year? Like, I spend $300 on heating for my entire year for my house. I'm in Canada, and in a cold location. A lot of people spend that on a single month in a cold part of the year. So yeah, it costs more out the gate for me to build my house that way, but I have cost savings. So being able to bring it down to brass tacks for people can be super important. That's actually also what I do. I do less of the corporate. I can still, in terms of their brick and mortar operations, looking at their waste stream cycles and turning them into resources. But where I actually find I do more of my work in consulting is with acreage owners, and them going, hey, I want to have a side hustle or a full hustle of making money from this landscape. And I don't want to do traditional agriculture. I don't want to do the extraction based stuff. I want to be a part of this exciting narrative that allows me to go, I have a beautiful place, but I also can make money from it. And I get to feel good about both those things. I think there's a bit of guilt sometimes with making money. It's like, let's make it less icky. Let's make it a measure of success, the same way you would fruit off a tree. No one's going to feel icky about having a bunch of fruit come off a tree. If we have our property, money coming off of it because of the abundance that it is giving, the same way that the apple from the tree, wouldn't that feel great? So that's often where I find my consulting work. I help more people, and I think it's a very empowering. Don't get me wrong, I love to help corporate, and I've done some corporate gigs before, but the power to the people that we need to be able to look after. There's this directive in permaculture. The prime directive is we need to put our homes and gardens in order so they shelter and feed us. If we all did that, and we all did that in a way that we're proud of, I mean, man, the world would look a different place. And if you do it right, and you've got more than enough room to share, I mean, this is where you get into a side hustle. The same abundance that you can get, you can share it. Anyone who's had, a garden and has, given zucchinis door to door knows this. But if you can get the equivalent of the zucchini abundance, but with more things on your property, then you've got something you can sell at a market. You've got a wow experience for Airbnb guests. You've got an opportunity to get into foraging and picking things and selling them in terms of taking extensively, not intensively from the land. So there's a way to actually take those fruits from the tree instead of cutting down the trees. A lot of our right. Ways of making money from the land are extraction based. Clear cut the trees, take from the soil, and those models are old, exhausted, high on chemicals and machinery, and we know it. So it's like people are excited that you can show them another way that they can make money. That doesn't mean all that work, all that machinery, all that chemicals. It involves feel goods and a beautiful oasis. And yeah, it can also make money.
Yeah, and it's which I love this stuff. And as I've been exposed to some of the information, I work on myself for the last 21 years, man. Spirituality and self-growth and helping others has been really, along with parenting, has been really the main focus of my life. But I only have so much energy, and so some of my excuses, especially before, were, yeah, well, I already got a lot going on in life, and all this stuff. But when I'm exposed to the actual information and I start understanding how, I'm part of nature, it's interesting. And I don't think it's just interesting to me. It's interesting to everybody that makes that connection, because we are part of nature. And when we start going oh, okay, so I don't have to I don't have to have a life that I don't like in order to be in alignment with nature. I actually could have a life that I enjoy more, because if you think about what are most people that don't enjoy their lives, what are they complaining about? Oh, I have to go to work, every day. I had to a job that I dislike. My bills are crazy. If I could just get out of this rat race, that type of stuff is what people are saying. And it's what I found with this off-grid and permaculture community is if you start understanding how things work and work with nature, you can get out of that rat race and live an existence that you actually enjoy. You can live in a tiny house and have more than what you need. You can grow all or most of your food. So a lot of people I know, I'm 56 now. A lot of people I know are around my age. Retirement is big time on their radar. Mm-hmm. And the amount of money that people think that they need to retire is in alignment with the system they think that they have to live in. Right? But like you could buy a little piece of land, go off grid, grow your own food, have it all laid out, and build another dome or tiny house or Airbnb, or just put some plumbing in and maybe some electricity and a community bathroom, and then just have people come park their tiny homes or trailers. What, there's just so many creative ways out there to get out of the rat race. And a lot of people that have looked into this are not gigantic, like they don't have tons of money. So they're finding ways, creative ways to do it without a lot of money. And there's so many people living their dream life now, just they're working from home, they're gardening, they're doing Airbnbs, they're selling the stuff they're growing there. And they're sitting there with, like a couple $100,000 in the bank that they're not even touching because they sold their house and now they're living in their dream property. Like they're like, how the heck would that, exchanging one dream for a more realistic, nature-based, in alignment with the one vision. It's way easier than we think. Way easier. People think it's amazing that I just moved over to the Dominican Republic and I live up in the mountains. They're like, oh my God, that must be amazing. You must like, I wish I could do that. It's like, you can do that in the Dominican Republic, but if you live in the United States or Canada or some other place, you can do it there. You don't have to move to the Dominican Republic. Like, there are ways to do this. You just have to start looking into it and using that mentality that you described, where, not to lock you in a negative way, but to go like, hey man, we've studied everything. Like, we must have ways to do this by now. And looking into it, and you find out there is.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I think the shifting of, I think you said it there, that stepping out of one dream into a different dream and going, okay, I can have this too. There are so many people out there who are already doing it. I mean, I think there's a bit of romanticization on some of it. Tiny homes, van lifers, sailing, off-grid living. All of these, I think people have to be careful where their why is coming from, because if it's only from escapism, then you're not moving towards something in a realistic way. You're just moving away from something. Versus if you're really clear on like what it is you want, then it grounds the what and the why forward. So I actually do this in my courses too. You kind of said it actually a little bit earlier. I hope you don't mind me doing a little shameless plug here, but
no, do it.
The whole thing about getting overwhelmed, and there's a lot to know. And one thing I've realized as a teacher is, man, there's a real lack of people putting this information together in a holistic way for other people to take this step. If they want to get into what permaculture is about. So I do actually have an online course. I do run retreats around the world. And yes, I do consulting for the people who are like, I don't want to learn it all. Just come and show me, come and tell me what you do if you were me. And then I get to love doing that, of course, get to go travel and meet really amazing people. And they've got the budget to implement. And I love that. But I honestly, my heart is in the people. And that's, I'm a teacher through and through. I've got this online course that I do run, and it's this Permaculture 101. It's the course website's called Attainable Sustainable Academy, and people can learn more, get on the newsletter, get free information. There's different ways to engage, but relative to those who are going, oh, this has been interesting, I want to know more about permaculture, that's a great way to dip your toes. And you don't have to do a course with me. There's lots of other courses around the world. Again, I'm not here to shamelessly self-promote. Say the movement is here for anyone, anywhere in their journey. You want to go on YouTube? Go for it. Go sift through all YouTube. There's a lot there. You want to take a course? There's different teachers all over the world. Want to take a course with me? Great. Come and see me for a week. I do a retreat. We do an online course. Or, yeah, like I said, doing consult and actually going and meeting people one-on-one, like for yourself. This is part of grounded our conversation and meeting, is we're going, I need to have someone look at the lands through this lens, because I don't know if I quite see it yet.
Yeah. So Hopefully, I don't know. Can you hear any background noise here?
You're actually okay. I'm hearing a little something, but I think you're good.
Okay. All right. Good. I didn't know the somebody decided to mow the lawn right outside my window. So hopefully, but it's good timing because we just about filled up the hour. So this has been great info, and honestly, I'm very happy that you put in that plug at the end because I wanted that anyway. So, but yeah, this is, and I'm going to put in your website, and stuff in the description as well for people. So yes, look into it and find out more about this because it's amazing in ways that I think everybody, if they start learning and looking into it, they're going to see how it sparks their particular interest. That's how all encompassing it is. So it's like, it's that overview, that oneness concept. And when we stop compartmentalizing every little aspect of our lives and start viewing it as a system, it's all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, well, so my problem is not this little piece. My problem is that I thought that little piece was all alone and not connected to everything else. Well, yes. When I look at the big picture and then I go, well, all I got to do is tweak this and it feeds that. And I tweak that and it feeds this. Like, oh my God, now I have my solution.
And not even just that it's compartmentalized, because I love that we actually really dove down that train, but to go back down to a previous conversation that the problem isn't even a problem. Problem is, again, a human mentality issue where it's actually a resource. You don't have a poop problem, you got a nutrient solution. You don't have a slug problem, you got a duck solution. Like this way of looking at everything as a resource. And as soon as we have a problem that comes up in our brain, it's great feedback to be like, oh, maybe I'm doing it wrong. Maybe I'm thinking about it wrong. If we got a work problem with modern agriculture, maybe we have a tree solution, because that tree is not going to be the same amount of work as maintaining annuals over and over and over again, where they don't want to keep being annuals. So there's an agriculture example.
And there you go. That's a perfect place to wrap up, because it's, to me, that just pulled everything together. Because it's I believe that everything has a spiritual law underneath, right? So it's like success. How do people become successful? Well, one of the mindsets of successful people is that they see opportunities where other people see problems, right? So people with that outlook succeed. A lot of times when we're talking about financially or stuff like that, but it's a form of success. Now, when you're, and you just brought that into our daily lives and permaculture, where it's like, no, you don't have a problem, you have an opportunity. Like, look for the solution.
Yeah.
We have to look at the solutions, not the problems, So yeah, the problem is just a hint towards the solutions, So it was perfect. Well, thank you very much for being on, Ken. I think that this was great, and I think you gave a lot of good primary information to the people, and hopefully they got the concepts that you can use this mentality and this permaculture movement for way more than you think it is, and it's really effective as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. There's a sign-off tagline that I used in some of my YouTube videos back in the day, which I think is a nice little thing just to give an advice. And that's just start where you are, use what you have, and just do what you can. At the end of the day, this is applicable to everybody, and anyone can do it anywhere in the world with any budget. A millionaire can do it to make their bunker dream home, and a person with no money whatsoever can do companion planting with seeds they find off the side of the road. So I think it's a good way to end off, as you said. So thanks for having me, Glenn. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yes, and that. I love the sign off, by the way, too. We have to have people to move those excuses out of the way and say, yes, I can. There is a way. So perfect. All right. Thank you very much. And I'll be right back to speak with you in a moment, Ken. But thanks for being on, and thanks for listening, everybody.